Don't call her cute, don't call her feisty. She's a rebel, she is nasty, she is brave. She isn't honey, sweetie, sugar pie, baby. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved. Don't you ever say that she was well behaved. And don't you ever say that she was well behaved.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little
Okay.
sleepy. I'm sad that it was like nice for 2 days and then back to the worst. It's like, come on. I mean, tomorrow's supposed to rain all day, so
I know.
that's awful for you. I'm sorry. But at least it'll be this week in like the 50s, which is like fine, but like it's not good enough.
It sucks to have those I would almost rather that we didn't have those 2 days
to like remember what it could be.
This place is like transformed when it's nice out.
I know, it's a whole different place.
It's so much more enjoyable. Everybody looks so good
And happy. People are doing stuff.
I went to the park yesterday.
That's really fun. I kind of wasted. I was a little bit at the park on Friday with the kids I babysit, but yesterday Louie and I drove to Princeton, New Jersey, and back to have lunch with his mom, who was in town for a wedding. And it was sort of stupid. I mean, he really wanted to see her. The other option was like tomorrow morning going to Newark before she left. But I thought that would have been like really stressful. So I kind of was like, oh, I think it makes sense for us to just go on Saturday. But there was so much traffic both ways. So it was like, close to 4 hours of driving, maybe 3.5 hours of driving.
Each way?
No, total.
Okay.
But for like an hour lunch.
Yeah.
So it was kind of silly, but it was fine. But then we kind of were like in the car for a lot of the day, which is kind of sad. And
but
then
still exposed to the sun.
Yeah.
So
and we were
nice.
out like walking around Princeton a little bit, and it was fine. And then, and then I went to the party at Julie's house, but I got to the party and I was so tired because I'd stayed up way too late Friday night and didn't sleep enough. So I got to the party and then I went down to see her room, and then we just stayed in her room for like hours and just like hung out. So it was fun.
Ideal.
It was perfect. Yeah. And then I went home and got Chinese food and then watched Drag Race. It was a nice Saturday.
That sounds like
Which
a
park
really
did you
nice
go to?
Saturday. Astoria Park.
Is that the one that's like right there?
No, that's the Steinway Park. That one's like little. The Astoria Park's big. It's
cool.
So I walked. I was like, as soon as I realized it was going to be nice on Saturday, I was like, Bamford and I are going to the park.
Yes, that's a treat.
And we did, and then we left when I had to pee. And so I came back.
You can't pee in the park like she can.
Right. And like there probably is public bathrooms, but I would have to bring her in with me.
It's like a whole lot.
And it's just like,
No,
it's one thing.
probably enough.
Yeah.
I don't know, you stayed an hour or something.
Yeah. I mean, we walked there, which was a long walk. And then I did my free writing there, looking out at the water. And then it was like very poetic. And then
How long do you free write for?
this time, normally I just do it like during the week. I do it on the train from here until Queensboro.
It's probably like what, 20 minutes, 30?
Yeah, 15 maybe. I think this I did longer. I wasn't like as strict about like keeping my pen on my paper. I took some breaks and then like went back to it when I had another thought.
Do you find that productive for like writing content, or is it just more of like a brain dump
I
journaling?
think it's more of a brain dump. Sometimes something comes out of it.
Yeah.
And or like sometimes I'll get a tweet out of it or like a kernel of a joke.
Yeah.
But usually I think it's more just getting in the habit of writing things down, and it like boosts my confidence because then the rest of the day I'm like, I did writing.
Yeah.
No matter what happens the rest of the day.
No, that's good. That's what they tell you to do. That's the morning. Basically, it's morning pages.
Yeah, but
You don't do them
but I
the
don't do
minute
it
you
first
wake
thing.
up. But I think that's still. I mean, I know she would. The Artist Way lady would be stricter, but I think you probably in New York. It's so hard to do that because you do have that ride on the subway. So you're like, I might as well just do it in the time. Like I might as well run out the door and then do it when I get on the subway.
Yeah.
Although my subway ride in the morning is, I take 2 trains, and the first train is very crowded, and then the second train. Usually I'll take like either the 2, 3 or the 1, and the 1 is local. And so if I get there early enough, I'll just get on the 1 and just sit on there for like literally from 14th Street till 110th, which is so long.
That's a long time.
But it's actually nice to like. I'd prefer that if I have time. I'd rather just sit on 1 train than have to get on than take 3 trains. But usually I'll eat my overnight oats on the train. Eat my breakfast, and then. I don't eat my breakfast till like the second train that I take in the morning.
There's something about like the commute in this city that like I feel like it really embraces a morning routine. You know what I mean? That like you just like, when I get on the subway, I know exactly where I want to sit. And then I like do
what
this.
What time do you have to get on the subway usually? I guess it varies.
It depends on the day. But I'm on the last stop, so I always get a seat.
That's nice. See, that's so nice. Yeah. I don't know. I like run out of the house so quickly. It's honestly, my like teenage self would be astonished by, I mean, I watch a child. So like, I don't have to like put makeup on. I just throw gym clothes on, brush my hair, wash my face, like throw my shoes on, and then leave the house.
I do like 2 of those things. I don't usually brush my hair, and I don't usually wash my face.
Oh, brush my hair. I meant teeth. Did I say hair?
You said hair.
Oh, I do not brush my hair. I meant my teeth. I brush my teeth.
I do that.
And wash my face. No, I don't brush my hair. No, I just run out. So usually I'll be out of the house in like 15 minutes. Yeah. Like I'll wake up, I'll usually wake up at like 8:45 and be out by 9, which is
If I didn't have this goddamn dog who's, hey, get away from there. Sniffing around the recorder.
Yeah.
She's like, you guys talking about me?
Yeah, it's so nice to have no responsibilities.
Yeah. So she holds me back, but otherwise.
Oh, because you have to get up and walk her.
Yeah. I have to walk her and feed her and give her medicine and pet her. And also, I mean, this is nice, but first thing in the morning, she's always really cuddly, and she like gets in bed with us, and she like
that's nice.
Throws her belly up in the air. And
I prefer another hour of sleep, but I see the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, that sounds like a nice Saturday night.
Yeah, it was very chill. Did you do anything last night?
I just did shows.
Oh, cool.
I did a spot at Eastville, which was great. It was like I was like, you guys seem way too nice. It was amazing. And then I did a man's 50th birthday party.
What?
Which he was celebrating at a bar in Brooklyn.
Who was he?
Just a guy.
How did he find you?
Well, he found Jordan. I think what happened was that there's comedy at that bar anyway.
Okay. And
I think it's monthly. And the owner of the bar is wonderful and loves comedy.
What's the
so
bar?
much.
Do you remember?
Dean Street. Shout out to Dean Street. Mm-hmm. And the owner, I guess, was talking to Jordan and was like, you know, we have this private party here, but like people are still going to expect comedy. And Jordan was like, nobody's going to expect comedy.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, well, I guess they made an arrangement with the guy whose birthday it was and was like, I'll just have him pay you guys a bunch and you can perform. What? So we just did that, so I hosted it. I mean, it was like a lot of Long Island drunk 50-year-olds.
That's tough. But you got paid.
But we got paid. I mean, that's pretty much, we were all just like, this is one of those things where like you just do it and you get your money.
Yeah.
But the owner was so nice, and after he was just like, they spent money.
That's
like,
great. That's great.
Like he really got it.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
And it was exactly what it needed to be. And then Liz, Jordan, and I took a lift home, not a lift line, but a lift, because
fancy
it was the three of us,
schmancy.
and Jordan has a writing job.
Yeah, baby.
I'm really taking care of his family. And then
So
I
exciting.
came home and I went to kiss Shaki goodnight, and my glasses fell off my face onto him, waking him up jarringly. And
Romantic.
yeah.
You need to get your glasses tightened.
I know. I really do. I need to get my
God.
glasses tightened. I mean, I need an eye doctor appointment in general.
Yeah.
Oh, this made me love the owner. Last night, some like Long Island dickhole was like talking to me afterwards, and he was like very clearly hitting on me, and I was like trying to make a joke about how poor I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I said something about like not having because he was like, you look so, this is so annoying, but he was just like, you look good without your glasses or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh, whatever.
Like,
And kind of rolled
okay.
my eyes. And the owner's wife, I was talking to her, and we both like exchanged a glance.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I got a cousin in Queens who's an eye doctor. Give me your number and I'll whatever. And so the owner of the bar like sees this, and he goes, give him my number. Because he was like, the guy was like handing like, he was like, just give him my number. And so I was like, okay. And I like took the guy, I was like, let me see your phone. And then like the owner got like caught up with something. And so then I just turned to his wife and I was like, what's your husband's number? And so she gave it to me, and then I gave it back to him. And then afterwards, she and I were talking about how proud we were of him in that moment for like recognizing what was happening.
Yeah,
And
and being,
intervening
like-
in like a low key way.
I know. I'm surprised that guy isn't the type of guy to be like, all right, I'll call you right now to prove that. Oh my God.
Yeah. And then the owner, he was like, I guess I'm going to be hearing from him tomorrow. And I was like, you're going to hear from him tonight.
Yeah.
Like that. He's very drunk. You're going to hear from him tonight.
Oh God. Ooh,
But I
blowing
did
up
look
potato.
really good last night.
Well,
So
there you
I
go.
get it.
Oh my God. Have you seen any pieces of the Beyonce
and Coachella. I saw a little bit of it.
I just saw like the first like 15 or 20 minutes, but I can't find it's hard. It was 2 hours, and I would watch the whole thing, but it's kind of difficult to find like pieces of it. I need to go and like look more closely online.
Yeah,
I was
just
rushing
seen
to like
little
research a
bits.
woman this morning.
I get it.
And then when I finished, I watched like 15 minutes of Beyonce, and I was like, okay, I should go.
I watched a little bit of it this morning.
So
It
good.
reminded me of Drumline. It was so good.
It was so amazing. Oh
And
my
so I
God.
want to watch the rest of it.
Fascinating.
She's so talented.
I know. We're not worthy. We're
We
so
don't
lucky to be in the time of Beyonce.
Beyonce. You want to do a
Wow.
podcast?
Yeah.
I think we're a little sleepy.
We're a little sleepy. It's like so cloudy outside.
It's such a bummer. But so that's the vibes that we're
The
bringing
vibes
to you.
is
It's
like
not.
it will never be warm again vibes.
Last week, the vibes were Molly and I have been hanging out for 4 hours, and she's drinking and I'm smoking.
Yeah.
These vibes are like, we're both sober. We went out last night. We're here to tell you some information.
Some informations. This is Well Behaved, by the way.
It's a
if you didn't know.
podcast about women in history who you've never heard of.
And I'm Molly Ruben-Long.
And I am Ariel Elias.
Wow. Got those intros out of the way, baby.
We're so good.
Do I go first this week?
You do.
I always ask. I never remember. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Only one of us has to remember.
Yeah, you do it. Okay, so my woman is Emily Warren Roebling. Dun, da, da, da. Okay, Emily was born September 23rd, 1843 at Cold Spring, New York. She was one of 12 kids. Wowza. Born to a state assemblyman. So her family was like pretty high class, I guess. And they could trace their roots back to the Mayflower. So they were old Americans.
Old pilgrims.
She was very close with one of her brothers, or one of her older brothers, who ended up becoming a Civil War general. But he loved her very much too. She was his favorite sibling, so he sent her to this like very prestigious school in DC called the Georgetown Visitation Convent, which I guess it was like part of a convent, but he didn't send her to the convent. It was like a school.
Yeah.
And so
that's such a passive aggressive way otherwise of like sending her to a convent. Like, you're my favorite sister. You'll never have sex. Get to the convent.
Yeah. No, he was like, no, you should have an education. It was the opposite. He was woke. Which is like, there was another example of a woman that I did for the podcast a while back whose brother like supported her, and that's why she got an education. I forget who it was. She was like a Native American woman. I don't remember. I should have looked it up.
Was it the artist?
No, maybe it was
the one who ended up finding it.
Yeah, maybe it was her.
Like half black, half native.
Yeah, I think it was her. Yeah, and her brother. Yeah. And her brother was also, I think it's, I mean, we see a lot, like, it's a very common trope in this podcast to see, like, men, whether it's, like, dads or brothers or just, like, someone else who are like, hey, you're really smart. And then, like, that's how they get success, because the general systems in which they live, like, if no one sees that, it's not going to just happen for them, because they're not expected to get educated. So anyway, that was one of these instances. So in February of 1864, she goes to visit her brother, and she meets this dude who was serving under her brother during the Civil War, and his name is William Roebling.
And she's like, I'm gonna serve under you.
Yes. Wow. That was a hot riff, to be honest. I loved that.
Thanks, man. I'm very cold though.
I know you were in a blanket.
Under
this is the hugest. It is like a comforter.
It's a comforter that is usually on our bed, but yesterday was so warm that we were like, Shaggy was like, I don't need this warm ass comforter. And then this morning he woke up and he was like, I need the warm ass comforter.
I know. But
it was already out here.
So
but
much.
I get a lot of comforters because a certain dog likes to chew
comforters,
blankets. And then I get those like deals on the like Queep House thing. I get like the deals.
I know. I want to do that.
So I got this comforter for like $6.
That's awesome. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I want that. If you ever need,
honestly, it's just I can refer you. I just have to get my life together and actually print out a W-2.
Oh,
or a W something, because they pay you for referring people.
Oh, wait, I can just send you a W-2 like on the via PDF.
But mine.
Oh, you could.
I mean, I just have to like sign one and send it to them, and then I can. I have a lot of like little things. For some reason, like things like that. I have so many of those things that I just have to do, and I know they're not hard.
Next time you're at my house, I'll have my computer. We can just do it on a PDF, and then I'll make you do it.
Do you have the PDF like upgrade where you can actually sign on the thing? That's
all
nice.
the Macs have it now.
Oh,
it's very exciting. So I'll just make you do that next time you're at my house, so that I can get this too. Okay. Anyway, that was a side note. Anyway, just like Ariel is under this comforter, Emily Warren Roebling got under this dude, William Roebling. They got married a year later after
her
they
name
met.
wasn't Roebling yet,
No,
right?
it was Emily Warren, but now then it became Roebling. They moved to Trenton, New Jersey for a little bit, but then a couple years later in 1867, her father-in-law, so that's William Roebling's dad, sent them to Europe. Now, William Roebling's dad was a man named John A. Roebling, who was German-born but lived in America, and he was a civil engineer. And he designed and built tons of wire suspension bridges across the country. He was like, probably if you're like an engineering student or an architectural student of some kind, you probably have heard of John Roebling. He's like a very famous bridge builder.
The guy.
Yeah, a very famous bridge builder in America. So, the idea is that William Roebling, his son, Emily's husband, is going to like also be an engineer or whatever. And so he sends them to Europe to study something called caissons, 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 and also the disease that is associated with caissons. So basically caissons are, look, I'm not an engineer, but bear with me. Basically this like watertight structure that you would like, that's used in the construction of building bridges and dams, because basically it like somehow clears the water so that you can work underneath it.
Okay, sort of like a vacuum.
It's like some kind of like air compression thing or vacuum. I don't really get it, but Basically,
Shaggy, do you get it? Do you know what those are?
do you know what a
Casins?
casin is? Oh yeah, here he is. Shaggy's coming to mansplain casins to us. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so it pushes the water. It allows. Here's a beautiful picture. This is a good picture, actually. Okay, you see the casin pushes the water. Google casin picture.
We'll put it
You'll
on
get
the
it. On the Instagram. That's a good idea.
Stuff, if we remember.
Anyway,
thank you,
so
Shaggy.
they go to thank you, Shaggy. So they go
Shaggy's
to Europe.
an engineer.
Is he okay? So we got a real engineer in the crowd.
Yeah, that's nice. Every now and then I'm like, when we first started dating, I was like, Shaggy, can you teach me math? That's just in your phone.
from the Brooklyn Bridge.
That's
you
so
probably
funny.
know who. Do you already know who Emily Warren Roebling is?
I actually do too, but.
Oh, you do too?
Full disclosure, I do know who she is, yeah.
Oh, maybe
But-
this is a more famous one.
No, but I think it's from researching women. Like,
Oh,
I've
okay.
thought
You've
about
seen
doing
her. Okay. Anyway,
And there's another. I've heard another podcast about the bridge itself.
about
Yeah.
I almost gave
fine.
a spoiler too.
I know because I bought the Brooklyn Bridge.
Because you bought the Brooklyn Bridge.
It's about the Brooklyn Bridge, you guys.
Brooklyn Bridge.
Get ready. That's what we're getting towards. Anyway, so
So they go and study casins.
they go to study casins in Europe.
And what's the disease?
Okay,
too?
so pause on the
Okay.
disease.
Okay.
So, one source said they went to go study the disease, and one source said they went to go study casins. It seems much more likely that this John Roebling fellow did not care about the disease. Apparently, he had like a very short temper. He was like kind of an intense dude. I think they went to just go study the technology and then to bring it back to help him build what would eventually be the Brooklyn Bridge. So while they're over there, Emily has her first kid. They move back, and John Roebling starts designing, like taking on the huge task of designing a bridge between Brooklyn and Manhattan, which would eventually become the Brooklyn Bridge.
And John's the dad?
John's the dad,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
The famous guy.
Yeah.
So it will, like, the Brooklyn Bridge is set to be, and is when it becomes built, the world's largest suspension bridge at that time. It's called the 8th wonder of the world when it's finally done. So it was like a huge undertaking, right? So they come back.
I feel
and
I feel like there are so many 8th wonders of the world.
Yeah, there's like I mean, come on. It's like probably
Guys.
25 wonders at this point. Too many wonders. I'm going to move this table closer
The
to us.
only other wonder I want to hear about is Stevie Wonder.
Oh my God. The only wonder I want to hear about is The Wonder Years. I love that show.
It's a great show. The only wonder I want to hear about is Wonder Woman.
Ooh, I didn't like that movie.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God. And we call ourselves a feminist podcast. The only wonder I want to hear about is Wonder Bread. Just kidding. It's gross.
The only wonder I want to hear about is the rest of the story.
Okay, let's go. This bit was running out of steam. All right. So
Choo choo.
So they come back, and John, the father-in-law, is like starting to build trying to design this bridge. And while he's out working on where the bridge is going to be and all this, he's at the dock of the Fulton Ferry, and his foot gets crushed by either one thing said a ferry and one thing said like a, what's that big like square? I forget. I didn't write it down, but
Dock?
No, like the type of boat that's just like a big like rectangle.
Like a raft?
No, there's a word for it. Whatever. His foot gets squished by the. It doesn't matter. His foot gets squished by a big boat.
Okay.
Basically, is what happens, and
Bummer.
his toes have to be amputated.
Ugh.
And he refuses medical treatment.
John A. Tobling.
Yeah.
Sorry.
John No Tobling. So he refuses medical treatment and
Why?
because he was like
Take
stubborn,
it.
I think. And so he insists on something called water therapy, which is where you just pour water on the wound.
No.
Which obviously is dumb. So he died.
Did he really?
Yes. So he dies, and then William becomes chief engineer. And William, I mean, there's no like real accounts of him, but he does seem sort of like a soft man. I don't know. He just is like seems very ineffective. But anyway, he becomes the engineer of the Brooklyn Bridge all of a sudden, and he's like, oh God.
Is that how it works? Like if your dad
I guess so. Well, I guess maybe, yeah, I don't know why it was that way, but maybe it was like, my guess is that it was like a family business. It was like it was contracted to that business, and he then became the chief engineer of that. That's my guess, but
it's a real Donald Trump Jr. situation. It sounds like
exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so in January of 1872, while William, the son, Emily's husband, is working on the Brooklyn Bridge, he gets something called Caisson disease, also known as the bends. Because basically what it is, okay, so this is gross, I'm sorry, but this disease, here's what Wikipedia had to say. It's a condition where dissolved gases come out of a solution into bubbles in the body upon decompression. So basically, because you're going so far underwater and it's like there's like a decompression, there's like bubbles that pop out of your joints.
Sure.
And so it's like very debilitating. Like it's basically like paralyzed him. So it's like
people
really
die
bad.
from it.
Oh yeah, people super die from it, and like super. Yeah,
I've seen Baywatch. They have to spend a lot of time in the decompression chamber.
Oh, okay, there you go. I never saw that.
You never watched Baywatch?
No.
That was like, I used to watch it when I was like 12, and it would be on USA.
Wait,
when I got home.
Why did they have to go on a decompression?
There
what
was
are they
like
doing?
I remember there was one episode where a guy, I don't remember, like, I mean, I guess he was one of the lifeguards who was like scuba diving and had to come up too fast for some reason. Maybe there was a shark.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah.
The plot wasn't always so important.
No, but okay. But they had to decompress.
He had to spend a long time in the decompression chamber, and they show how much time passes by showing a clock, and you see the hour hand has shifted, and so you know that he's been in there for a long time.
Wow, that's great TV writing.
I think so.
That's perfect. Very creative. No, yeah, so I guess maybe this was before they invented the decompression chamber.
Yeah.
So it was really bad. Anyway, so like during the construction
before they would have learned about it from Baywatch.
Yes. During the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, at least 24 men died while building it, and there was even more like lost fingers and like people who fell without a net.
So crazy.
A lot of like very undocumented injuries because it was all built by hand.
We
and
call
there
them
was, like,
illegal injuries.
No. What?
Undocumented.
Oh, undocumented injuries.
I do think about it sometimes when I'm on the subway.
They are what would now be illegal. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm in the subway, I when I get really frustrated, I will take a moment to think about like how many people died to build it. A lot of people died building the subway.
Yeah, I think they probably are rolling over in their graves that the thing that they died to build is fucking broken. Yeah. I feel like it's not honoring them to make it not work. Anyway, so at this point, William is bedridden, and he says later, quote, "I thought I would succumb, but I had a strong tower to lean upon, my wife, a woman of infinite tact and wisest counsel." Basically, Emily steps her shit up. The city, like the Brooklyn mayor, is like, this guy's bedridden, he shouldn't be the engineer for this anymore. And Emily uses her diplomacy and her charm and convinces them to keep her husband as the head civil engineer or the chief engineer, and she basically just does his job for him while he is bedridden. She like goes back and forth with him and both the workers and the politicians. She, oversees contracts. She orders supplies. I mean, she is checking in with him, but it feels like she is doing the bulk of the work, and obviously I'm sure there were decisions she had to make where she couldn't just run back right away, so she is like the lead person on this basically. It started with her just like taking notes, but then it like snowballed into her basically doing the whole thing. So yeah, it was basically because of Emily Warren Roebling that the Brooklyn Bridge exists. At the dedication of the bridge, a congressman named Abram S. Hewitt called the Brooklyn Bridge, quote, "an everlasting monument to the self-sacrificing devotion of a woman," which is like condescending, but it's the best they could do. And quote, "the name of Mrs. Emily Warren Roebling will be thus inseparably associated with all that is admirable in human nature."
Okay,
that's what it said, and
that's a lot for
a lot of the
but
quotes.
Sure.
I mean, it was like a huge deal.
Yeah,
it was a big deal. This bridge. It took 14 years to build. A lot of like corruption and bad contractors and everything, but it was finally finished on on May 24th, 1883, and Emily was the first person to cross the Brooklyn Bridge carrying a rooster for good luck.
Oh. And
Pretty
then
cool.
is the I mean, I don't know if you go into this, but is the Brooklyn Bridge also the one where there was a horrible stampede when they opened it up to the public?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that.
And like a lot of people died.
Sounds like it would be.
Yeah.
But I don't. Okay. Well, there you go.
So that's just
Is that a confirmed
just
fact?
a little
Or should we ask
PS.
Shacky?
I know it happened on one of the bridges. Maybe it wasn't the Brooklyn Bridge.
Shacky. Oh, he's gone.
Shacky.
Oh well. Whatever. Okay.
Well,
probably because the
well,
Brooklyn
when it
Bridge is
comes
like
back.
the most attractive one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So she was a super important person. It's funny that a lot of quotes about her are like still kind of condescending. Like there was there was this biographer who wrote a book about I guess William or I don't know, all the Roeblings in 1931. So it was like 20 years after she died. And he described her as, quote, a woman of strong character with a, quote, almost masculine intellect,
Ugh,
which is
fuck
like
you.
so gross.
She's so smart. I couldn't believe she wasn't a man.
It was like
I couldn't
so
believe that
condescending.
a woman could do things that a man could do.
Yeah.
And
So-
men are clearly the smartest because they know to
I've
ask
been
for
the
water
only
therapy.
one who's been given opportunities this whole time.
They died because they thought that water could just go on a wound and
Could
then
cure a
came
wound.
up from the bottom too fast. But they are very smart. They're very, very smart men.
my god. Anyway, so she goes on to like live in Trenton, New Jersey with her husband, who is like pretty sick for the rest of his life. She passes away, or no, I should say before she dies, she gets a law degree from NYU women's law class,
Wow.
which they didn't allow women to, so it was all just like, you know, the law of periods or whatever. It was just like the law of like how much blush to wear or
how
whatever.
to ask your husband for permission.
You know, women's law. No, it was a law degree, but they just like called it that. She got that in 1899, and she wrote an argument in the Albany Law Journal for equality in marriage, which I'd say she was a pretty good spokeswoman for equality in marriage.
Yeah.
Anyway, she did die in February 28th, 1903 of stomach cancer.
Oof.
But yeah, she had a pretty cool life. I guess she wasn't that. She was like 60. Yeah, she died at the age of 60. So yeah, that is. Oh, and this is a fun thing. I saw this quote too. So, you know, probably publicly she was like, "Oh, my husband, I just was doing it for my husband." Blah blah. But then there's this letter in 1898 that she wrote to her son that says, "I have more brains, common sense, and know-how generally than any two engineers, civil or uncivil. But for me, the Brooklyn Bridge would never have had the name Roebling in any way connected with it."
Wait, but for if it
but
weren't for me,
if it wasn't for me,
yeah. Fuck
basically
yeah.
your dad was gonna fuck up the Roebling thing.
Yeah.
If the Brooklyn Bridge, if it wasn't for
Your
me.
dad and your grandfather were both gonna fuck some shit up, probably.
And it's so
And you're
I
welcome.
appreciate that in the privacy of a letter to her kid, she was like, "No, I'm a bad bitch, but I'm just not allowed to like say that."
Between you and me,
It's not diplomatic.
I'm pretty great.
Yeah. So my sources were the New York Times, the like newer obituaries that they're doing. This one was by Jessica Bennett, the RoeblingMuseum.org, which is the museum in New Jersey you could go to. The Wikipedia pages for Caissons and John Roebling, and the Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica website. Yeah.
How did you hear about her? Just growing up on the Brooklyn Bridge?
No, I'd never heard about her actually.
Oh.
I was just looking through the New York Times obituaries because those are kind of because I was running really late. Those are like an easy jumping off point.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to do those. I'm trying to only do those if I have like if I'm running very late. I
get
haven't
it.
done my person yet.
It's fine.
But-
I just go to any of the comment threads where people have suggested people when I'm at a loss.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And that's where this one comes from.
Cool.
Okay. Anne Trow. I think that's how you say her last
Weird.
name.
My
It doesn't
mom's
really
name
matter.
is Emily and her sister's name is Anne.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're like very British.
They are.
slash-
But the title of this episode will be Emily and Anne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, well. Oh. Okay, so, well, it might not be. Because that's not the name she goes by.
Okay,
like
never
that's not
mind.
what she's
Scratch
named.
that.
She has a name change. So she was born in England in May of 1812. It's just like sort of an unremarkable childhood. She gets married, they have a kid, and then in 1831 the family sets sail for New York City.
Ooh.
And pretty much immediately, Anne's husband dies because the streets are covered in poop.
Wow. Just like today, only now it's dog poop.
Now it's dog poop. I think then it was like human poop and then animal blood.
Yeah.
So Anne wasn't doing great because she's like, her husband just died. She's in this foreign country. She was working as a seamstress, making a little bit of money, but like not really enough to make ends meet with her daughter. And then she meets this man named Charles Lohman. And he is like a well-read, literate man who works for the New York Herald. And he would like surround himself with these radicals and free thinkers and like philosophers and, you know.
Yeah. Like a real like Wesleyan grad.
Yes,
a guy who went to Oberlin or
exactly.
something.
Yeah, the intellectual elite.
Yeah, a skinny pants predecessor.
Exactly. And so I guess they get married. I don't know when that happens, but at some point they get married.
Yeah.
And so at the time, medicine was like a very DIY kind of thing. Like there were a couple of medical schools, but like it wasn't such an establishment. And so most doctors back then were just these like glorified salesmen who would travel from place to place selling their potions and like whatever.
There was no FDA approval.
No. And like there is, I don't know when it started, but like there is the American Medical Association, like the AMA like does exist, but they're not. It's mostly like any actual medical treatment usually comes from midwives, and or like, I don't know, medicine men probably isn't the right word, but like it's like there just like isn't a whole lot of like established medicine.
Right.
So I like was trying to find out more, but I googled like medicine in the 1830s and I just got a bunch of articles about ketchup and how it wasn't until the 1850s that they realized ketchup wasn't a medicine.
No.
And also that mercury was like the go-to solution.
God.
Which is poison.
That is poison. Yeah.
It's actual poison.
Well, it's going to end the disease, but also the life.
Also the person, yeah. So that also meant that like women's health was like never talked about or studied except with midwives. So Anne, and she's like encouraged by Charles, she decides that she wants to provide medical services to women, specifically birth control and abortions.
Sick.
So Anne, I guess she like teaches herself how to do it. She like reads up on how to do that and also like probably like talks to some other people, and then she concocts a story that makes her sound more legitimate. So she tells everybody that she had gone to Europe to study like under the finest midwives, including her grandmother, who is this like renowned French physician. And she said that her grandmother's name was Restell. And so then Anne starts going by Mrs. Restell, and then she goes by Madame Restell.
Oh.
So it like sounds legit because she's French.
It's French, and American people have always been intimidated by French because it's difficult,
especially in like New York City.
Yeah,
you know,
bougie.
They're so fashionable.
Yes. The most fashionable abortion.
So, and like I didn't realize this, but abortion was legal at this point up to like there were restrictions on it, but it was legal. It was legal up until a point called the quickening.
Yeah, right. No, I knew that. Yeah.
Which like
sounds like a horror film.
Truly. And if you don't know, which I did not, but the quickening is basically when you can feel the fetus moving.
Right.
And
which
it usually happens
very hard to prove, kind of. Yeah.
And it usually happens around 4 months. And so a lot of times like women would come to get an abortion, they'd be like, you're 3 months along. You know, like you would just say that they were. And then after that, it was considered second-degree manslaughter, which came with a $100 fine and a year in prison. So, Madame Restell first comes up with birth control pills, more or less.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's basically a blend of like herbs and poison, but that will like make you feel terrible, but it also makes you not get pregnant because you're not healthy enough because you're being poisoned.
Oh, God.
But it's like the only option.
Yeah.
And with Charles's help, since he was a newspaperman, Madame Restell starts advertising her services and products in the papers. And she would sell these birth control pills for $1 each. They were super popular. They were sold at 6 different outlets around New York City. And then other people started imitating.
I'm going to intimidate this pill. Hey, pill.
Pill, you think you're so good? I'm French. You're just a New York pill.
Au revoir, pill.
So
Imitating it. They were
imitating it, and they were also imitating her, and like they started giving themselves French sounding names.
Oh gosh, she was a transcender.
The ads were like super coy because there were all these words that you couldn't say. So like you can't say menstruation, you can't say pregnancy.
What? Wait, was it more like a plan B, or you would kind of just take it to like, or you would?
I think it's a combination. So there's it, like, I don't know if they would take it every day or if they would figure out when they were
trying to fuck and then take it.
Yeah.
In accordance.
Or what? Because it's like it's like all of it. She does all of it.
Okay.
So here's an example of one of the ads, because like you had to like have all these euphemisms and stuff. Is it moral for parents to increase their families, regardless of consequences to themselves or the well-being of their offspring, when a simple, easy, healthy, and certain remedy is within our control? The advertiser, feeling the importance of this subject, and estimating the vast benefit resulting to thousands by the adoption of means prescribed by her, has opened an office where females can obtain the desired information. So like you can't actually say, but like anybody who's looking for that stuff knows what that means. So just trying to get around the censors. Okay. And then if birth control, quote unquote, didn't work, and women still got pregnant, they could come to her house between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. and she would give them basically an abortion pill.
Okay.
And I guess this was like a stronger concoction or like different, that whatever. And then if they were past that point, she would either perform a surgical abortion, or she would provide lodging for these women to secretly give birth and then would adopt the baby out. So like, because it's all about just like your standing in society.
Right. So it's like, so no one will ever know that you were pregnant.
Yes,
basically.
Exactly. Like you just disappear for a few months.
I wonder how many kids like just came out of that, and like the lineage that produced of people who don't really know where they're
That's
from.
a good question. I didn't see any like statistics. I mean, I know she performed thousands of abortions.
Wow. So yeah, but then I wonder how many the adoptions. They did.
I don't know. That's a really good question.
That's cool though.
Also, so like I was like listening to this thing about like why she's not more well known. And the biggest reason they said is she's not a clean cut feminist hero. She was out for money.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this wasn't about like providing a service to women. This was like, no, there's demand and I'm going to fucking make money.
An opening in the market.
She charged on a sliding scale. So like, which worked so well in her favor, because even though, so it's like, it's different from, I mean, I guess it's not really that different. It's so like, we still like don't talk about abortion at all. But at the time, like a lot of women seeking her service were sex workers or like poor immigrants who couldn't afford another mouth to feed. But the majority of women who sought abortions were middle to upper class married white women. Yeah. Who had an affair, or they just didn't want another baby around, or whatever. They just didn't want to go through it. Like, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, a lot of women who get abortions today are married or whatever. It's just about like not wanting to have to raise another fucking life. It's a lot.
It's so much.
Yeah.
And so, do you remember, because we saw Obvious Child together, and I remember this was like such a striking little detail, but at the end of it, spoiler, she has an abortion. She's in the recovery room, and she's with, like, you can see sort of like all the other women who are in there, and there's a woman sitting next to her, and they like don't touch on it at all. It's just like a quick thing, but there's a woman sitting next to her with an engagement ring on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's such a good detail to be like, everybody, like, so many women.
It's everyone.
Of every class. So because the majority of women who are getting abortions were these like upper class women, she could just charge these women so much.
Yeah.
She would charge them up to $100, which in today's money is around $2,300. And if women were coming to her to give birth and like adopt out, she would charge them for lodging. She would charge them for the delivery, charge them for adoption services, and then charge the people who were adopting the baby.
Damn.
So much money. Hang on.
Ooh.
I thought I had to sneeze. It went away. I hate when that happens. Okay.
Hopefully it'll come back.
Yeah, it probably will. Or I'll just be like stuffy for the rest of the day. Okay, but so of course there's pushback because abortion is controversial. But so it's interesting because the argument that they used in the 1840s is not the argument that people use today. It wasn't like abortion is murder. Their argument was like, these women are loose whores and abortion is like corrupting them, and it makes women think they can be free of motherhood, and
right. Which I think now is like the like birth, like true birth control came along, and so many women use it that it's like, I mean, I guess that the argument there was like abortion is being used as regular birth control.
Right.
Which now we have regular birth control and so many people use it. It's hard to, there are still definitely people on the right who don't think we should have birth control either. But I think that's way less of a argument because so many conservative women use it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to have your baby, conservative man.
Yeah.
That's not true, but
unfortunately
not here. Okay. So, where was this? Oh, so once like the pushback on abortion, like when they were trying to outlaw it, there's this quote from an author, who who wrote about like the attempt to outlaw it. She said its main effect was to expose and humiliate women caught in raids on abortion clinics or brought to the hospital with abortion complications, and thereby send a message to all women about the possible consequences of flouting official gender norms. Publicity, the forced disclosure of sexual secrets before the authorities, was itself the punishment.
Yeah.
So just trying to shame women for being women. And then on top of that, the like quote unquote real physicians who are like starting to sort of like get their shit together with the AMA were trying to crack down and create a legitimate medical establishment, and that meant that they were trying to discredit these midwives and like DIY doctors and put them out of business because it meant more business for them.
Right.
So I think I wonder what their long-term motives were. If it was like, okay, we'll just make abortion illegal now, and then we'll push for it to be legalized once
in a way that we
can
can do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which, I mean, that's just my interpretation.
Right.
So the first time that Madame Restell is arrested is in 1841. A year before, a woman named Maria Purdy had come in for an abortion. She already had a 10-month-old at home and was like, I can't have another fucking baby. No. This is too much. So Madame Restell gave her some vials of abortion, which she started taking and then stopped because it made her feel bad because it's literal poison. Yeah. And she like wasn't feeling well. So instead she went back for the surgical procedure. And then I guess like didn't feel well after that, kind of like blamed Madame Restell for that. And then cut to the next year, Maria is on her deathbed with tuberculosis. And while she's on her deathbed, supposedly, this is like, because I read like a lot of stuff that was like, here's like a common thing that they used to do was if women were like dying from complications of an abortion, the police would come and basically refuse to allow medical care to the woman until she confessed what she had done and who did it.
Oh, God.
So according to the official story, that's not what happened here, but that was like very common. According to this, she's on her deathbed and has like a deathbed confession to her husband and tells him that she got this abortion. And like says that it's Madame Restell's fault that she's dying.
Right, which tuberculosis has nothing to do with it.
Tuberculosis has nothing to do with it. There was also a thing that I saw about how midwives, usually there was like a lower infant, at the time there was like a way lower infant mortality rate because midwives were in the habit of washing their hands.
Yeah.
And doctors were not. So, you know, so that happens. And then Madame Restell is charged with, quote, administering to Purdy certain noxious medicine, procuring her a miscarriage by the use of instruments, the same not being necessary to preserve her life. Because, like, at the time, like, abortion was legal, just not the surgery. So Madame Restell was then called, like, this is like a huge fucking trial. Yeah. Like, trial of the goddamn century.
What year is it?
This is 1841.
Wow.
It's like all over the newspapers. They call her the monster in human shape. She was accused of encouraging prostitution and adultery. She was called a hag of misery, which I actually love.
Yeah.
Put that on my tombstone. And then they started referring to abortion as Restellism.
Ooh.
Which, you know, that's what we'll be calling it soon again when we have to like move an abortion underground.
Yeah.
It's Restellism, so get ready.
Restellism. So
Madame Restell was like, fuck that, there's no way you can prove that this lady died because of me. She then puts out an ad in the newspaper that offers $100 to anyone who could prove that her medicine was harmful, which is so smart because of course nobody's going to come forward even if they had a negative experience, because then they're admitting that they had an abortion. So like, just fucking brilliant.
A real PR stunt.
Yeah, totally. So she's found guilty, but that just makes her like more infamous. Like it makes her name even more widely known. And then she appeals it because she's like, it was a fucking deathbed confession. That's not allowed. I guess at the time, like those were only admissible in civil suits, not whatever. I don't know, not criminal things. So she's retried and found not guilty because they can't use the deathbed confession.
That's great.
And so Madame Restell now is like fucking empowered and she goes right back to performing abortions. She's advertising it still. She's like, fuck you guys. At this time, 20% of all pregnancies ended in abortion. So money is really good. Everybody's coming to her in New York. And then in 1845, New York State makes all abortion illegal.
Wow.
All of it. Practitioners who performed abortions would face 4 to 7 years in prison, and the women seeking an abortion could face a huge fine and up to a year in prison. But the irony is that women who had had abortions would no longer come forward to testify against their practitioners because they faced a year in prison.
Right.
So they couldn't prosecute the practitioners anymore.
Right, because then yeah. It's like they really trapped themselves with that one.
So dumb. Okay. And then in 1847, this woman named Maria Bodine comes to Madame Restell for an abortion. Maria had an affair with her boss, who's like this wealthy man. And by the time she gets to Restell, Restell decides that this girl is like too far along for an abortion. She's like, no, like you're like too pregnant, past the quickening. But if you want, you can board here and we'll adopt the baby out and like nobody has to know. And I think like Maria might have been down, but her boss, which in this they call her lover, insists and probably like pays a lot of money. And so Madame Restell is like, all right, fine, and performs the abortion. Maria gets sick afterwards because it's 1847 and she's in a lot of pain. So she goes to like an actual doctor. He sees that she's had an abortion. He reports it to the police. So then Madame Restell is arrested again, this time for second-degree manslaughter.
Wow.
Which is like, so annoying. And then
So annoying.
this time, it's like an all-male jury, and they're just like not having it. She's sentenced to a year on Roosevelt Island, which at the time was called Blackwell Island. Which if you don't know, because I didn't know before I moved here, honestly I didn't know until like last year, but Roosevelt Island is this like tiny little strip of an island between Manhattan and Brooklyn, Queens. So it's just like right in the middle, and now there's an F train and high rises, but at the time there was just a prison. So when she does that, it sucks. She gets back and she's like, okay, I'm done with surgical abortions, but I'm still going to provide the abortion pill, and I'm still going to have my fucking my boarding house. I almost called it a hoarding house.
Hoarding house.
I mean,
sort of. Look,
I mean,
in the most positive sense.
And she's trying to get her reputation back. So she decides to apply for U.S. citizenship, since in order to become a U.S. citizen, you have to be a, quote, person of good character.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is like, all right, fine. And so she becomes a citizen in 1854, just like that.
Cool.
Okay. Throughout all of
what
this.
the illegal aliens are doing.
What?
All the illegal aliens are performing abortions.
Yeah, I know. It does sound like a Fox News like propaganda thing of like, they're crossing the border, they're having anchor babies, and they're performing abortions.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, that is the story of Madame Restell is a Fox News worst nightmare.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I didn't really get into this, but like the way that abortions were performed surgically, I was like, oh yeah, I can see why this is like on people's poster boards when they protest abortion. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was like straight up bad. That's not what happens anymore, but like
what was it?
It was, I mean, one was like dilating the cervix like way too early so that you would give birth to a baby that would pretty much just die immediately. Or like wasn't ready to be, you know. There was another that was like, I mean, I think it's like they like cut off the head. Yeah, it's bad. It's like all of medicine was bad then. Yeah. And like that's not, but like it made me realize like, oh, when like people who are like anti-choice, when they throw those like,
that's what they're thinking. Like, they're thinking about 1800s medicine.
Yeah, when you're talking about like the history of abortion, that is true. That is what they used to do. But also they would just like cut off an arm if it had like a wound, because they were like, well, the whole, like for a regular person. Yeah. You know, like that's what surgery was back then. Yeah. So, okay. So she's like, Madame Restell though, she's doing great now. She did her year in prison. Who gives a shit? She has the best furs. She has the best jewels. Whatever luxury was in the 1850s, she had it. I don't know what it was. I don't know what made people happy back then, because for me, it's air conditioning and heat. But like, she had whatever made her happy. And that didn't really help with her reputation. She became known as the wickedest woman in New York. But legally, she's mostly left alone, because even though all abortion is illegal, she's super wealthy. So she's paying off the police. Nice. She also is the one who all of the women in New York's high society would come to when they got abortions.
She's the keeper of every rich person and important person's secrets. Yeah. So like she can't, it's hard to take down that person. She's like, oh yeah, you want to arrest me? I'm going to say that, hey, police officer, I'm going to say that your wife's whatever, like when I gave your wife an abortion or whatever. Like
totally. So yeah. So one, she can like blackmail anybody. Yeah. But also the women who are in high society don't want their husbands going after her, because they're like, if you want to keep fucking me, we need her. Yeah. Not just their husband, but like their lovers, you know, just like everyone, all these, because everybody's just fucking everybody.
Everyone needs her, basically.
Everybody needs her. Everybody is a hypocrite and saying like we're all proper and Victorian, but really they're just fucking each other. Yeah. Everybody's living in sin.
Nobody wants kids.
Nobody wants that goddamn baby. So she's widely hated, but also widely respected. An example, the mayor of New York City at the time, whose name I didn't write down, but figured out, presided over her daughter's wedding. So, like, that's, you know, she's in good standing. And then in 1857, she and Charles build, like, a house/abortion clinic on 5th Avenue and 52nd.
Sounds like a fun house.
It's right across the street from St. Patrick's Cathedral, which was like a huge fuck you to the Catholic Church.
That's awesome.
Who had officially condemned her.
Yeah.
It's also New York City's second apartment building ever.
Whoa.
So Stuyvesant is the first.
Yeah.
And this is the second.
That's so interesting. There's a lot of New York history today.
Yeah, it is a lot of New York history. Mm-hmm. And then this fucking guy, Anthony Comstock.
Oh, I know him. Yeah, I've heard about him.
He's, if you don't know him, he's like the Mike Pence of his time.
Yep.
He founded the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice. Just like,
I feel like if you create a society to repress vice, it's like you must have a lot of vices to repress, baby.
Yeah, what are you running away from?
Yeah, like what are you so scared of in your own brain that you're like, this is what I'm going to dedicate my life to?
He didn't see any difference between birth control and abortion, viewed pornography as a cancer, which, like, some of it is, but, like, you're looking at the wrong porn.
And at that time, the porn was probably just, like, a lady with feathers over her privates.
Just, like, a woman in shorts. Yeah.
It's like, man, he would be pissed off today.
Oh, my God. So angry. He's a professional wet blanket.
Yeah.
And then in 1873, there was a federal law called the Comstock Law, which outlawed selling or advertising obscene matter by mail, which included telling somebody where they could get an abortion.
Right. It included, like, a lot of scientific, like, textbooks,
right,
too. It's it was just, like, completely, it was like, what? We need to know, like, we need to look at the body for science.
And the Vitruvian man is disgusting.
Yeah.
So violating that came with 6 months to 5 years in prison and a $2,000 fine. And then he takes it a step further and personally goes after Madame Restell. Her husband, Charles, had just died. He died in 1876. And that left her more vulnerable and less powerful, because at this time, it's like, even though she's this, like, I mean, self-made millionaire, like, you still, like, women couldn't negotiate contracts and, like, you know, like, housing and stuff like that. So him dying leaves her, you know, kind of open to this.
Yeah.
And so in 1878, Anthony Comstock, possibly in disguise, so dumb, knocks on her door and pretends to be a sad husband who had too many kids and his wife is pregnant. Could she please just prescribe him a pill? And so she, like, feels bad for him, sells him some pills for his wife. He comes back a week later to then get pills for, like, a single woman. I don't know why he does this, but like,
he's
just
so
fucking
creepy.
And so she sells him more pills, and then 4 days later after that, he comes back with the police and they arrest her. And Madame Restell at this point kind of sees the writing on the wall. She's like, I think maybe I can't be protected anymore. She's also in her 60s, and, you know, her husband had just died.
She's
So
trying to scale back on the abortion business.
Yeah, she's just like, fuck, I think this is it for me. Like, they're gonna send me back to prison. I'm not doing another year on fucking Roosevelt Island.
Yeah. Honestly, I wouldn't want to do a year on Roosevelt Island now.
Yeah, right?
Sounds... Can't even imagine.
So she was becoming also increasingly paranoid. A lot of her, I guess, like, according to her servants, she was, like, pacing and saying, like, why do they prosecute me so? I have done nothing to harm anyone, which is, like, not totally, I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's this whole thing. She also, she fucking hated Comstock. She said, he's in this nasty detective business. There are a number of little doctors who are in the same business behind him. They think if they can get me in trouble and out of the way, they can make a fortune. Which, like, she's probably right about it. Like, a lot of that. The reason why they wanted to put her out of business was so they could take money.
Definitely.
And so on April 1st, 1878, she's like supposed to be in court. She doesn't show up. Her maid had like gone, I guess she had like gone to check on Madame Restell, sees her in the bathtub, is like cool, goes back downstairs, is eating her breakfast, comes back up to like get her dressed. Madame Restell like isn't there. She then goes back to the bathroom and sees Madame Restell like submerged in the bath, and she had slit her throat.
Ew.
From ear to ear.
I don't think she'd have time to get all the way to the other ear though.
Yeah, probably not. She did not. So there was like, some people were like, was this foul play? There was an investigation. It probably was not. It would like, she didn't leave a note, but she put on every diamond that she had before she died. I love that.
That's sick. Just covered in blood diamonds, literally.
Yes. There was a New York Times obituary. Here's the headline. This is the headline.
I'm ready.
End of a criminal life. Madame Restell commits suicide. She cuts her throat with a carving knife and is found dead in a bathtub. The body discovered by a horrified servant. A verdict of suicide by the coroner's jury. Sketch of the woman's career, her property, wills, and relatives. Mrs. Lohman's history. Mrs. Lohman's family. The dead woman's property.
That's too many words for a headline, I'd say.
And then the actual obituary says, the notorious Madame Restell is dead, having for nearly 40 years been before the public as a woman who was growing rich by the practice of a nefarious business, having once served an imprisonment for criminal malpractice, having ostentatiously flaunted her wealth before the community and made an attractive part of the finest avenue in the city odious by her constant presence. She yesterday.
Wow.
That's
a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of like, maybe it's a good thing that the New York Times didn't write obituaries for all those women in the first place. This is what it was. Yeah,
they would have been a little different, I think.
So she dies, and then the Comstock laws would all of them would remain in effect until, I mean, the last one was finally overturned in 1965. And abortion in New York was legalized in 1970 and then nationwide in 1973.
Look, if you can give abortions here, you can give abortions anywhere. That's what they say.
That's so fucking funny.
Oh wow. She was the best.
That's Madame Restell. My sources were the SmithsonianMagazine.com, The Abortionist of Fifth Avenue by Karen Abbott, The Atlantic, Abortion in American History by Katha Pollitt, which when I saw Katha Pollitt, it's Katha, and I really just kept fantasizing that it's the alter ego of Karen Pence. The Bowery Boys podcast, episode 211, which I highly recommend if you're into it's a very different tone for when it's boys, and it's like they go into a little more detail, and it's like not as it's like very researched. So
Sick.
I recommend them if you're into this. And then the New York Times obituary from 1878, and then also this article in 2013 about the real estate section of the New York Times called Madame Restell's Other Profession by Christopher Gray, talking about how like it was the second apartment building in New York.
That's awesome.
That's right. And thanks to Claire Schwab for the wreck.
The reckoning. The quickening.
The quickening.
Quickening, yeah, it does sound like a spooky movie.
Ugh.
Or it sounds like sort of like a baking step. You know what I mean?
After the bread has proofed, you have to put it through the quickening.
Yeah. Doesn't it? Like a step on British Bake Off. Sort of is a bun in the oven. You know what I mean?
Oh man, you're on fire.
I don't know about that. Anyway, that was a very New York centric, accidentally New York centric episode. Mm-hmm. Do you have any Wonder Woman? I guess Beyonce, as always, but especially today.
She will be remembered.
Yeah, I'd say she will. I
don't have anybody specific. I did just read this article about how there are more mothers running for office than ever before, and how traditionally when women who are mothers run for office, they're like, they're told to like tone down, like to be very selective about when they bring in their motherhood. And it's like, just, you know, like it's good for like a couple of pictures, but like otherwise voters will worry that you can't handle it all.
Oh, you mean like women are being told to just be more like men, and that's like very unsuccessful because we're better, but in a different way.
Well, but now there were like 2 instances. One is like a woman who's running for governor in Maryland, and the other, she was running for governor somewhere else. But like these women basically like gave speeches like while breastfeeding.
Sick.
And just how like
awesome.
they just don't give a shit they're like, I don't care what the research says.
Yeah,
like,
it's like, yeah, did the research say Trump, bitches? The world is different now.
Right. Well, and they're just like, who can, like, this is a bonus. This shows that I can multitask.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'll take care of my fucking kid and you guys.
Yeah.
And all of my, like the whole constituency.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think like that's super. And sorry, I didn't write down the names of the women who breastfed. Like,
maybe just Google that,
but
breastfeeding while.
Just read the New York Times article. It's really good.
That's
and
great.
Gives me hope. And I feel like moms.
Yeah, just
know?
moms. You know what I mean? Moms, period. That's all there is. I have not very many dates coming up, but we do have an all-female reboot show.
Oh yeah, let me go here. I'm
on
gonna grab
Saturday.
my phone while you read your
I mean,
dates.
it's really just this.
Well,
so,
really stretch it, Molly.
You might not. Okay, well, Ariel and I will both be doing all-female reboot, which is a sketch show where we reboot famous movies as if they were cast entirely with women. That is the 28th, so in 2 Saturdays at 9:30 at the Tank Theater. Also, just before Ariel gets here back, remember to rate, review, and subscribe, please.
Yes, please.
It really helps us a lot.
So much.
Share with a friend. Okay.
On Wednesday, April 18th, I will be at Halyards at 8:30. Friday, April 20th, I'll be at Freddy's Bar at 7 o'clock in Brooklyn. And then I'm hosting a show at the Creek in the Cave at 8 o'clock, which is going to be like a real stoner show, bruh.
Sick.
And then, all-female reboot on the 21st.
28th.
Oh, on the 28th. Why do I have the 21st in there?
I don't know.
Whoops.
I mean, maybe one of us is wrong.
No,
I'll look at the
I
email.
I think you're right. Let me go ahead and delete that because I have it in the next week too.
Oh, gotcha.
Whoopsie daisies. Okay, just kidding. And then the April 25th through the 27th, I'll be at the Creek in the Cave for Brandon Collins' Hour. So that's at 7 o'clock. And then, all-female reboot on the 28th, which, like, why would you think any other date? So dumb. That's what I got in my calendar. And don't forget tax day is tomorrow, guys. The 17th.
Oh, yeah, I did mine. It was annoying.
It's always annoying. Okay.
Well, that was great. Rate, review, subscribe, babies.
And email us at wellbehavedpod@gmail.com.
With any suggestions or questions or answers.
Preferably
Comments.
answers.
Why?
Why are we here?
Why?
What are we doing?
Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Such types of things. And you can find us on all social media at wellbehavedpod. That's great. Well, keep making history.
And don't you ever say that she was well behaved.